Hello dear friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Happy New Year everyone. It's a new year. We're well into the new year already, but I still haven't posted anything this year. I just took a small break because I had a little cold, but I'm getting over it already. So I really wanted to sit down and film this video because it's going to be the last video that is going to focus on books that I finished in 2023. It's going to be the last 12 books that I managed to finish within the year, and it's going to be a video where I share some thoughts and feelings. Let me put it like this, because the books that I read, some of them really had me thinking about a lot and had me considering my feelings about the tropes that I love. Specifically, one of the books is one that I really want to share some thoughts on. So that book I'll possibly discuss in more detail. Also, the 2 5-star reads that I had, I'm going to focus on more, and the rest I'm just kind of going to breeze by because most of the reads that I had in the later part of December were 3-star reads, so not very memorable or kind of disappointing. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive in because there's a lot to talk about. I'm just going to start off with the book that I really have some thoughts on because it's a very interesting one. I'm very intrigued by it and I'm very conflicted by it as well. The book came onto my radar because of Jenn from the Book Refuge. I'm going to link her channel in my description so you can check it out. The book is called Return to Monte Carlo by Cate C. Wells, and I saw her channel. I saw that she rated it 6 stars, and I just heard that it's a marriage in trouble situation, and I was like, okay, she loved it. Sign me up. This is my favorite trope. I'm always on the lookout for a good marriage in trouble situation, so I'm going to pick it up. And I saw that I have it available in Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, I'm picking it up. So good thing about this book is that it's quite short. I think it's about 250 to 300 pages, so you can breeze through it. It's not a very long book, and it has some very interesting factors within the book. So first of all, the setting. The setting is, it's set in the 1980s, like 82, 83, something like that. And we've got an Italian billionaire, Marco, who goes to the States on business, and he meets a 19-year-old, kind of fresh out of school, not knowing what to do with herself, Diane, who works in this kind of salon or spa within this huge hotel. And he meets her and he's immediately very intrigued by her, and she is smitten with him. She doesn't have any experience whatsoever with men, and he is older than her. He's, I think, 33 or 34, something like that, and she's 19. So there is an age gap between them. So a lot of things are going on within this book that I typically love. So there's an age gap. He is a dominant, so he's very much a very dominant presence within the book, not only in the bedroom, but also outside of it. And she is very much kind of discovering herself through him as well. So what happens is they have this whirlwind romance, and he sweeps her off her feet and immediately marries her. He takes her back to Monte Carlo, and that is where their trouble starts because he moves her into his house where his entire family lives. And they are not very charmed by her. They think that she is the typical blonde American bimbo that is kind of a disgrace to their family. They thought that he would marry into someone who is more dignified to be part of their family because they're kind of a huge name back there, and they really don't take any liking to her, so they make her life miserable. And she is very naive and very kind of, she thinks that she can win them over, but it just doesn't happen. So when the book starts, essentially, it's their first year anniversary. She has prepared this huge dinner and she's expecting him home, but he doesn't come home. When that happens, she kind of starts to question their relationship, and she also finds certain things out that make her doubt herself even more, so she decides to leave him. She goes back to the States and she finds out that she's pregnant. So that is where the story starts, where their second chance begins, because obviously he needs to come back and get her because she's not going to have this baby on her own. It's going to be their family's heir, so he definitely is not going to miss his chance on having the baby with her. But what kind of, so the intriguing part within the book is that all of the tropes that are within this book work for me. And the setting within the book, the 80s, and the type of relationship that they're in, and also the family drama, that works for me. I really love that part within the book. What didn't work is that he didn't grovel enough for me. I don't know. I think he didn't communicate it enough with her, and I found that her character was very fascinating for me, because even though she was very young and she was very smitten by him, she really knew that she deserved more. So she was really fighting to get what she wanted within the book, and I really appreciate that within the book. But then his character, while I appreciate some things within his character, and the fact that he's a dom and that he fell in love with her specifically because she is a type of person that just fits within his fantasy, specifically in the bedroom. He was looking for that kind of a woman, and I really get that. But he just didn't do enough for me when it comes to redeeming himself with what he has done in the first part of their marriage. So that is why I'm really conflicted with this book, because there were a lot of things that worked for me, but a lot of the things that didn't work for me were really kind of a big letdown for me. So I think I'm going to stick to a 3.5 star rating for this one. I'm so conflicted by this book, honestly, but I really would urge you, if you love Marriage in Trouble books, please pick this book up so we can talk about it. I think this is the best way to kind of get it out there, to see, like, is it me? Is it something that maybe I should reconsider? Does it deserve more than 3.5 stars? I don't know. Please pick it up and let me know what you thought about it, because it's such an intriguing read. The next couple of books I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to gloss over because they were 3-star reads for me. I liked them, but they were not very memorable. The first one is a Christmas themed book called All I Want for Christmas by Michelle Stimpson. This author, I picked up another book by this author in November. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars, so I decided to give it a go with this one as well. It was very cute. We have our heroine who is a doctor. She works at this hospital. There is this new nurse. He is a male nurse, and he is very much kind of like a Grinch. He doesn't like Christmas, while she's all in for Christmas, and she's also a single mom, so she is all about getting the best kind of Christmas feeling within her home and also within the hospital that she works at, because also she shares this feeling with her child. So they get coupled together to decorate the hospital, and when they get to shop together and decorate together, they spend a lot of time together, so they get to know each other, and they have an immediate connection together. So it's quite cute. I liked it. I didn't really love it, but it was a good enough Christmas themed. I think it was a novella that kind of got me in the mood for Christmas, because it was very Christmassy. So yeah, if you want to pick up another Christmas themed book after Christmas, it's a good one. Next up, we've got a sports romance by Rebecca Jenshak. The book is called Broken Hearts. It's actually the 3rd book within a hockey series. And the thing is that I made a mistake. I admit it here. I did not read the first 2 books within this series. I think this is one of the later releases, and because the trope sounded good to me, I thought, because they can be read as standalones, that it's not going to be too bad if I read them out of order. But once I finished it and I went back to read reviews in Goodreads, I really felt like I have missed out on getting a connection with the other characters within the 2 previous books. And I was just not as invested in the characters and story as much as all the other people who have picked up the other 2 books first. So I think that was my mistake within this one. It's a hockey romance that focuses on one of the hockey players called Red. His love interest is Sienna, who is a figure skater. And he has recently gotten out of a very long relationship. But the interesting thing is that while he is not a player at all, because obviously he has been in a very long relationship, she thinks he's a player because she bumps into him every time that he is in a kind of a compromising situation. So she's kind of assuming some things about him at the start, but then they do immediately have some kind of a connection. So they start off having more like a friendship at the start. And both of them are dealing with a lot from their past. She has a traumatic event that she's trying to get over. He has this long relationship that he's trying to get over as well. And his ex is still kind of trying to be in his life. So yeah, it's an interesting romance in terms of I love the sports aspect within it. So her being a figure skater and him being a hockey player, I love that dynamic and the found family within the setting. But I just wasn't as invested with the characters like I mentioned before, so I gave it 3 stars. The next book is another 3-star read for me, and this one is genuinely a letdown because this book has been hyped up over the last couple of months. The book is called Done and Dusted by Lyla Sage, and it shouldn't be a surprise actually that it's a disappointment. It shouldn't be a surprise that I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else, because it features the trope that I like the least, and that is brother's best friend. Why am I not surprised? I'm always saying that I'm on the lookout for the one book that is going to be the exception to the rule, but I have not yet encountered one in the recent couple of years that I've really enjoyed. This book focuses on Clementine and Luke. I think people, also authors, should just avoid naming their children after fruit. This is my first thought about this book. Clementine is just not a good name. This is just my first thought about this book. Second thing is, this is a very generic brother's best friend romance where we've got the heroine goes back to her small town. She's a rodeo rider, but she had a very nasty fall, so she doesn't feel secure enough or kind of confident enough to get back on the road. So she goes back to her small town to kind of regroup. When she goes to her small town, she finds out that her brother's best friend is the bar owner. And he also works at their ranch as like, I don't know, like he gives lessons, like horseback riding lessons for kids. So she's very surprised by that. And yeah, they have a romance. It's just not very, I don't want to trash this book too much, but it's just a very generic brother's best friend romance where the brother gets mad that they're keeping the relationship a secret, and it's just, it wasn't it for me. I finally get to talk about a book that I gave 5 stars to, that I genuinely really enjoyed. The book is The Bodyguard by Katherine Center. This book was really popular in 2022 when it was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I think it really deserves to be on that list, and I think that Katherine Center did such an amazing job with this book. It's actually a closed door romance, meaning that it's very low on the spice level, and also it's much more, I think, focusing on the progression of their relationship in terms of how they get to know each other, and not so much on their physical attraction, which I really liked within this book. This book focuses on our hero Jack, who is a celebrity. He's like this hotshot actor, but he has been off the grid for a while. And his mother has recently been diagnosed with cancer, so he is kind of coming back into the limelight because he's going back to his hometown. And our heroine, Hannah, is part of the security company. She is a very kind of high-level bodyguard, which is very kind of unlikely because she's short, she's petite, she doesn't look like the type of person who is going to be a bodyguard, but she's one of their best. And she is hired to be his bodyguard because there has been this stalker who has been bothering our hero, Jack. So, essentially, she is his bodyguard. He, at the first sight, kind of doesn't want her to be his bodyguard and also doesn't believe that she can be his bodyguard, but she really quickly convinces him. From her side, she has just gone through a very tough time because she has recently lost her mother, with whom she didn't have the best relationship. Her mother used to be a drug addict and she has recently passed away. And just after her mother died, her boyfriend, who also works with her, broke up with her. So it's quite an interesting thing that we have both of their backstories kind of highlighted already within the start of the book. So you kind of already feel connected to both of them. And then the way that they connect over her job and his situation with his mom is just so amazing within the book. I don't know, and also the banter between them, the way that she is viewing the world, the way that she is very career focused and then not thinking about romance at all, but at the same time immediately starts feeling a connection with him. It was just so well done. This book was just so well done, so well written. I really loved it. I cannot give it anything less than 5 stars. I definitely recommend it. The next book, unfortunately, is another letdown, and it again features the marriage in trouble trope. The book I really had high hopes for because I typically like the books by this author duo. The author duo is Emily Wibberly and Siegemund Broka, and the book is Do I Know You? I actually purchased the physical copy of this book without having read it, and I really should stop doing that. I really have made a point for myself to try to purchase books that I have read and loved so that I can just own them and go back to them whenever I want. But I'm taking a risk of purchasing books that I haven't read yet, and then in this situation I really didn't love. The book centers on our hero and heroine who have been married for I think like 5 or 6 years, and they have hit a rough patch within their marriage. It's kind of like a stale situation of they are almost at a time where they're falling out of love because they have not too much in common. They don't talk a lot, they don't communicate very well, and they're going on this retreat that was gifted to them for their anniversary. And they're on this car ride and it's so incredibly awkward because they just don't know what to talk about. She is an audiobook narrator. I really appreciate that part within the book. He is kind of like a finance guy. I don't know, like an accountant, or I don't know what he is. And they're going on this retreat, and what happens is they get to the reception of this hotel and it turns out that they have 2 rooms booked. Our heroine thinks of this plan like, why don't we split up for the week where I take one of the rooms and you take the honeymoon suite, and we pretend to be strangers so that we kind of can get the spark back within our marriage. So they kind of think of this plan to try to save their marriage in that way. Now, the premise sounds interesting enough, but the book was so boring, and I have to say that I really had an issue with the fact that while the premise sounds interesting, that for the time being they're trying to do something to spice up their marriage, they just didn't communicate well enough within that week to make it work as a type of device to save their marriage. They were just behaving like they don't know each other. They've kind of stuck their heads in the sand and ignoring their marital problems and trying to have the best week out of it. But then in the end, both of them are kind of figuring out that they haven't made any progress with their problems. So it really was very awkward for me to read through. I was like, okay, so when are we getting to the part where they're going to fix stuff, you know? That's the part that really didn't work for me. So I gave this book 3 stars because it wasn't a bad book per se, but I just had much higher expectations from it. The next book I did enjoy, I gave it 3.5 stars, and it's the second book within a series. It can be read as a standalone because I read it as a standalone. I didn't read the first book. The book is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. The first book is When in Rome. I picked this book up because I had it available to me on audio, and it was just after the Goodreads Choice Awards and it was nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award. So I was like, I want to see if it's as good as it should be for it to be nominated. And yeah, I really did enjoy it. It wasn't anything too special, to be honest, but it was a very enjoyable read, so I would recommend it typically. We've got our hero Will and our heroine Annie. Will is the bodyguard of the heroine from the first book, and Annie is, I think, the sister of the hero from the first book. And basically he hasn't been in the small town because he's a bodyguard who is hired to do certain gigs for this celebrity from the first book. So he's not there all the time, but now that something has happened with this couple from the first book, he's back in town. She is in this small town, and basically her motivation in life is that she wants to have a family. She wants to get married, she wants to have children, and she's looking for her partner essentially. And she's on this very bad date at the start of the book, where the person she's on a date with tells someone else behind her back that she is very boring. So she kind of wants to find out why she comes off as such a boring date. So she enlists the help of our hero Will to find out what she can do better when she's dating, so that she can find the love of her life. So this is essentially like a lessons in seduction type of situation. And in the process, they obviously fall in love. So yeah, it was a cute book. I liked it. It wasn't anything too special, but it just served the right purpose. You expect a very cutesy story, and it's a very cutesy story. So yeah, it's a 3.5-star read for me. Next up, we've got a bookish book that I really liked. So with bookish books, meaning that there's bookish themes within the book, I've had some bad luck with those types of books, but this one I really liked. The book is called The Neighbor Favor by Kristina Forrest. I gave it 4 stars. We've got our heroine who is in publishing, so she is within the bookish world. And she has this all-time favorite fantasy story that she has reread many times, and it's only one book within a series that has come out, and then the second book never came out because the author has just not continued on with the series. So she finds out one day that he has a website and that there is this contact form, so she decides to write a message to him. And he decides to write her back. So they start this back and forth of messaging, and they get to know each other quite well, and they kind of really like each other through this communication, and they figure out that they want to meet each other. But before that happens, the hero stops communicating with her. So fast forward a couple of months, he moves into the building where the heroine lives, and they don't know each other face to face, so they don't know that they have communicated before, and they meet up and they have this immediate attraction to one another. Now the hero does find out that she is the person so he has communicated with, but he doesn't tell her. So we know that that is the conflict within the book, but it was just so well written. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed all of the different conflicts that contributed to the hero not feeling comfortable enough with sharing his story. So yeah, I really like this one. I feel like I've had to refilm parts of this video 100 times already today. Talking has been difficult. I haven't filmed in a couple of days, so it's been difficult for me to talk. Thoughts are not running correctly in my mind, and additionally my camera died, so I didn't even know when it stopped. So I was just talking and talking and talking forever, and then I figured out that I'm not filming. So I'm going to continue this here again. I'm going to be talking about a book that I really liked. I think I've mentioned a couple of times before that I really want to find more books with mature love. So with characters within the story that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who are just more mature in life and have had more experiences, because those are types of stories that are just quite different than new adult or even adult stories. So I found one that I really liked. I read it on audio. The book is called Gray Hair Don't Care by Karen Booth. And this book centers on our heroine who has recently gotten divorced, and she just bumped into an old flame of hers who they just started reminiscing when they bumped into each other, and she just made a slip and told him that when they were together, she didn't like their sexual experiences together. And he was like, okay, so I need to prove to you that I'm good in bed. So he convinced her to have a one-night stand with him. They have this amazing night together, but then he leaves her hanging. He leaves, and she is very jaded by this experience. But something good comes out of that experience, and that is that she decides to make a business for herself. She decides to let her gray hair grow out, and she decides to make a business that focuses on the demographic group that she is in, and her business blows up. She is instantly a star, and she needs a marketing company to market her new products, and that is the hero's daughter's company. So they get into proximity again, they start to communicate again, and she's trying to figure out why he ditched her in the first place. So it's a very interesting romance. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. The next one was really short. It was about an hour of an audiobook on Audible. The book is called Snow Day by Julie Lipton. It's kind of like a very interesting production because it does have a full narrator's cast, and it's only 1 hour, right? So it just takes you like this long to get it done. And the book centers on the heroine who is going on this train ride from Italy to France to get back to her boyfriend for the holidays. And she is sitting in this train together with this guy. He's called Martijn, and he is Finnish, I think. So they get to talking, and the train breaks down. They need to find accommodation to stay somewhere while the train gets fixed, and it's the holidays, so it takes a while. And when she calls her boyfriend to tell him what is going on, he's very pissed off about her not being on time for the holidays. And she kind of starts feeling like she shouldn't be in that relationship, and she is having more and more a connection with the guy that she has just met. So the story centers on that part of, the encounter. It's cutesy. I gave it 3 stars. It's quite short, so I don't think that it can be a 5-star read, right? Because you don't get the connection that you build up throughout a bigger novel. But it was good enough for a 3-star read. The next book I read is not a romance. I read a thriller. A thriller that I've been wanting to read for quite a while. The book is called The Maidens. It's quite a popular book by Alex Michaelidis. I don't know how you say the last name of this author, but anyway, it's quite a popular book. I think everyone has read this book but me. And I was disappointed by this book. I really didn't enjoy it as much as I had hoped. It did have an interesting premise, but it just did not work for me. I was bored throughout half of the book, and then the later part of the book was kind of predictable, and the plot twist wasn't a nice one. So I just didn't enjoy it as much as I had hoped. The book centers on our heroine who has just recently lost her husband. He had drowned. She's a therapist. She does these group therapy sessions, and we encounter her in a point of her life where she is just going day by day after the loss that she has had. And she has this niece who calls her up one day and tells her that her roommate has been killed at her university. So she goes to her niece to try to support her and help her out however she can. But she gets roped into the investigation of this murder that turns into a serial killer type of situation. So yeah, it just wasn't the favorite. I gave it 2 stars, and yeah, I didn't like it. I ended the year with an amazing book. I knew that I was going to love this book, but I kind of put it off because of all of the hype that went into it at the end of last year. The book is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book is a fiction book. It's not exactly a romance, but it does have some romantic elements within it, but they're very small. We're focusing on 3 characters within this book, where the center is really 2 of them. We've got Sam and Sadie, who met up as kids in this children's hospital, and they became very quickly friends. But while their connection was very strong when they were kids, they also had a bit of a rift between them because of something that happened. So years go by, they're in college, and they reconnect because both of them are video game developers. And they decide to make a game together. And that game, Ichigo, it blows up. It becomes one of the hugest games in the world. And the third person that comes into play is Sam's roommate, Marks, who decides to be a producer on that game. So the company essentially that is producing these games is theirs, all three of them. And the book is so interesting because it just weaves such intricate relationships between all three of them. So between Sam and Marks, and then Marks and Sadie and Sam. All three of them, all three connections are just explored, and you get to feel how important each and every one of them is for each and every one of them, if you get what I'm saying. And there are some very heavy things that happen within the book that influence the relationships within the book. And there is also very much a very human presence within what happens when you start up a business with friends. It's very much reminiscent of The Social Network of Mark Zuckerberg's story, but in a fictionalized world that involves video games and not social media. It's a very special story. It did start off a little slow for me, so I was really getting into it and I was like, am I going to love this? But then the end really made me fall in love with this story. It made me fall in love with how thoughtful it was in terms of when you mess up a relationship, can you still salvage it? Can you still somehow convince the other person that it's worth it to revisit a relationship or a friendship? I really genuinely love this book. I think it's a very special book. I don't think that it's for everyone, because I can imagine that some people might find it a bit tedious to get through when it comes to, because there's a lot of video game things that come into play. But yeah, just the relationships between the people, also a relationship that Sadie has with her professor was so well fleshed out. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and I definitely recommend it if you still haven't picked it up, because a lot of people have already read this book. I'm kind of late to the hype, but I just wanted to wait it out to see when I'm in the mood for it, and I'm really happy that I picked it up as the last book of 2023, because it ended my year on a very high note, and I'm so happy that that happened. I feel like I've talked a lot in this video, but I just had some thoughts to share. Apologies if this video is very long, but I really enjoy talking about books, if you haven't noticed. Even if it's books that I didn't enjoy, I just want to put my thoughts out there and see whether you share them or whether you want to say that I'm completely out of my mind when it comes to some of these books. Please let me know. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video. Let me know if you love them or whether you hated them. I won't judge. I hope you don't judge me as well for my opinions. I really enjoy talking to you about all of these amazing reads that I had, even though some of them were not 5-star reads. I'm just genuinely happy that I've had such an amazing reading year last year, and that I got to share so many books with you. And I hope to continue on in 2024 to be able to be as excited about books and read as many books as I did last year, so that I can share them with you. I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care, and bye-bye.